Hello, and welcome to Anaphylaxis UK's Let's Talk About Allergies podcast, where we provide expert answers to common questions about allergies and anaphylaxis. Our goal is to offer valuable insights on how we can all work together to make life easier and safer for those living with allergies. In today's episode, I'm joined once again by Tracey Dunn, our AllergyWise and Education Manager at Anaphylaxis UK, to discuss something we're sure is on many parents' minds as a new school year soon begins: how to feel confident in your child's allergy management at school. Starting school, changing schools, or simply navigating day-to-day school life can be daunting when your child has serious allergies, but with the right preparation, support and communication, you can help make that experience safer and less stressful for you and your child. Tracey shares practical tips and insights to help parents work collaboratively with schools, build trust, and ensure clear allergy care plans are in place. Hi Tracey, thanks for joining us today to discuss some tips for parents for their children starting school or transitioning to a new setting when they might have some allergies. So yeah, it's great to have you here with all your experience. And I thought I would start by asking, what are the most important steps that parents should take before their child with allergies starts a new school or starts school from the beginning?
Thanks, Mary, for having me back again. It's great to be able to talk about parents. And as a parent myself, this is something that I've been through with my boys who both have allergies. Notably with my elder son who has food allergies and carries adrenaline auto-injectors. And there are so many things that we can do to prepare that we could get a little bit overwhelmed. So I think it's really important to focus on communication and confidence. So first of all, if your child is small and just starting school for the first time, then you're going to need to do the communication, and you need to be talking to the school or the setting, if they're starting nursery, about your child's allergy and their care plan, and making sure that you give them all of the information right from the outset that they're going to need. They're going to need your child's allergy action plan. They're going to need to know information from the clinicians and information from you about how you manage the food allergy. So setting time for a meeting with them when it's convenient for them is so important, because when you have got a meeting in place, then you've got dedicated time to have this exchange of information. If you're just trying to do it at pick up and drop off, the member of staff doesn't have the time to give you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get your points across adequately. So communication is really important. Get the meeting set. If you haven't had one already, they are going to be closed for the summer now. But there's nothing to stop you from emailing them and just seeing whether there is any time on their inset days. Most schools have an inset day at the start of term, to see whether you could just pop up and see them. And they may well pick your email up at the end of August and say, yes, come on in, or they'll come back to you and say, well, let's meet in this first week. So communication, whichever setting you're going to, communication is really, really important. Also communication with your child, because they need to understand also the information that's being shared about them, particularly if they're at secondary school. You need to be sharing information that's going to empower them and that they are going to be comfortable with. And this also leads to that confidence in managing their allergies. So little ones need to be taught how to confidently ask adults, is this okay for me? Have you checked the label? They're really important questions that little ones need to learn to ask to any adult, and understand that the adult will welcome that.
So it's a good time perhaps over the summer to take some time to educate your child about their allergies and teach them how to ask questions about it and how to talk to staff or peers about it in, a way that they can feel confident to know that no one's gonna tell them off for being worried about their allergies or things like that. So is there some resources that perhaps you think are useful for educating children on their allergies?
There are a few books that are suitable for the younger audience, which are on our website. So if you have a look on our website, you can see the books there, and then you can click through to buy them. If you don't have them, or you could ask in the library, don't have to purchase them. But they're books that I use all of the time with little ones when we're talking about allergy. I also would recommend that you get hold of trainer adrenaline auto-injectors of the brand that your child has. And with Key Stage 2 children, with secondary school children, I would actually go through with them how to use them. And then when they have friends round to play over the holidays, I would be showing their friends how to use them as well. Or actually not you showing them, but actually your child showing them how to use them, because it's that independence that the children are getting through doing that that's really important. And so those are the key things that I would advocate people having. Along with, we want our young people to be carrying their adrenaline auto-injectors. And one of the conversations that I had with my son when he was starting secondary school was around the case that his adrenaline auto-injectors were in and a bag that they were in. He'd been carrying them for a little while for himself, obviously with me checking all of the time that he'd got them. But it was about making sure that he was happy and confident with what he'd got so that he would carry them. For me, that was the most important thing. We went from something that was very bright to a black case, but that was okay because it meant that he would have them. He didn't want to be standing out as he started secondary school. So having a conversation with your child about what they want to carry their adrenaline auto-injectors in is really important. We also compromised on a school rucksack, which had an outside pocket that the adrenaline auto-injectors went in, so they didn't go within the main compartment. And we spent ages that first year going through in some sports shops, going through every single brand of rucksack you can imagine until we agreed on what he was confident with. Now was the time for me to step back in what I wanted to empower him to actually manage his allergy independently going forwards.
Great, thank you, Tracey. And at what age is it that you tend to recommend that children would start to carry their own adrenaline auto-injectors? Obviously in primary school, perhaps they're being overlooked by the staff. And at what age is it that you would recommend that the responsibility becomes the child's?
So the responsibility becomes the child as they get older. So when they get into secondary school, they definitely have to have that responsibility for themselves, and the staff won't be checking. But as a rule of thumb, if a child is competent enough, has enough cognitive ability to understand that it is their emergency medication, then they should start to carry that medication as soon as they can, because as adults, it's second nature to us. When we go out, we put our shoes on, we pick up our keys, we lock the house, we've probably got our purse with us as well, definitely our phone. And so they're habit forming things. And unfortunately, children with allergies and adrenaline auto-injectors have to get into this habit much younger. They have to grow up much faster than what we would ideally like them to. So the younger they are, it's fine. They just get into the habit of, I'm going to put my shoes on, I'm going to pick up my adrenaline auto-injectors, and then we're ready to go out. So often in school, it's around year 3, but always with adult oversight. And it doesn't take away the responsibility from the member of staff to make sure that the child has got their adrenaline auto-injectors. We're not saying that they're responsible for, we are teaching them and we are helping them learn that independent skill.
So if you do feel like your child's ready to start carrying their adrenaline auto-injectors themselves, would that be the kind of thing you'd arrange a meeting with the school about, just to say, look, we think they're ready for a bit more responsibility now, but could you help by keeping an eye on them to see how they're managing it? Is that a conversation that you would recommend having just to make sure the handover of responsibility is supported and that someone's obviously still checking in on them?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to remember that every school is different, a different size. And some schools, the medication is kept more centrally because it is so close to the child. It's less than a couple of minutes away. We never want medication that is more than 2.5 minutes there and back to wherever the child is, because adrenaline needs to be given as soon as possible. Every minute counts. So it might be that a school says, well, they don't really need to do this. And it is important that that conversation happens with the schools so that we are teaching the child that independent skill from a young age, even if the school is really small. It might be that at school you say, okay, the school's really small, we're just going to keep the situation as it is. But by the time they get into year 5, they definitely need to be doing this because it takes a long time to make a habit. And in year 5, we're already starting to think about secondary school. And it is a crucial skill that it becomes second nature that they're carrying these on them.
So your top tip for easing worries about your child's allergies at school, as you've said, is open communication and setting up a meeting with staff. So let's say that meeting is in the diary. What should parents be bringing with them? In past episodes, and you always obviously mention the BSACI Allergy Action Plan, but are there other things they should think about, like asking for a copy of the school's allergy policy or bringing a list of questions? What are those key things that you would recommend having ready for that first meeting?
Yeah, so it would be really helpful for the parent to have already had a copy of the school's allergy policy. And if they don't have one, then because it's not a mandatory policy that schools have to have, we do have on our website a model policy that's been approved by the Department for Education. So people can just go onto the website, schools or parents, and download it, and there it is in Word format so it can be adapted. Mm-hmm. So we want to know the policy. We want to know how the child is going to be kept safe. So have the staff had training? And again, I'm going to recommend our AllergyWise for Schools training because it not only covers signs and symptoms of allergy and anaphylaxis and emergency response and how to use adrenaline auto-injectors, but crucially, it has what first aid courses don't have, and that is good allergy management practices. And so it will help schools think about that inclusion, that adaptation that they need to make sure that all of the children with allergies are not put at risk and are not excluded from any activities. So we want policy, we want allergy action plan, we want training, we want to know what the procedures are around lunch, how the curriculum's going to be adapted for the child to be included. And again, on the website, we have got a very helpful document called an individual risk assessment, which can be downloaded for free. And it will help the sharing of information from parent to school to actually run through all of the different areas that a child might do at school and think about any adaptations that might need to be made. For example, in forest schools, or cooking, or in PE. And it's a really empowering document. So I would be encouraging schools and parents to be completing that at the meeting because it will give a really thorough handover of knowledge.
And would that document, the risk assessment document, be suitable for assessing events that you might be taking place at school, you know, parties or fairs, or if there's going to be special treats for the kids, such as ice cream, things like that during the summer? Is that document also suitable for assessing those situations?
It can be, yes, but that will be with a focus on the individual. What schools need then is our site-specific risk assessment, which is also in that download section. And it will help schools think through all of those different things. And so they can have a bespoke allergy risk assessment, which will then inform all of their other specific event that they might be doing.
Okay. And so we recorded, Tracey, back at Christmas, a podcast specifically about hosting festivities at school and including children with allergies when there might be food or treats around that they're not allowed. So we do have that episode, which I will link in the description. But I'm just wondering, for people listening, what is your guidance for making sure that children feel safe and included at school in events, but also, during celebrations or festivities?
Okay, so what is suitable for the child with allergies is going to be suitable for the children without allergies. So we start with the child with allergies and we work out how we're going to keep them safe, and then we plan around that. So sometimes it's going to be really possible to say, okay, on this particular occasion, we're not going to have this allergen in our event. Sometimes that's not possible, and therefore we have to make other adaptations. So we need to be thinking about, how do we make this event safe? Do I change everything else because that's feasible, or do I need to do something specifically different, and what control measures need to be put into place in order to keep that young person safe? So it is a risk assessment process. We need to plan ahead. We can't do this at the last minute, because if, for example, we are cooking and we need to get some safe products, then you can't necessarily walk straight into the first supermarket that you come across and buy them. And the teacher or the member of school staff could be spending hours looking for them. Whereas if there had been, if it had been planned ahead and we'd spoken to the parent or carer, that parent or carer would be able to say 9 times out of 10 off the top of their head, I can get that from X place. Would you like me to get it for you? Often that was what I said. And I would encourage staff to say, no, please don't get that for me. I will go and get it, because we shouldn't be putting an additional burden on staff, on parents. Sorry, I'm digressing. But talk to the parents. They will know what their child can and can't eat and where to buy it from.
Sure.
Because that's what you do as an allergy parent.
So again, yeah, it's just that open conversation with the staff to say, have you got any festivities coming up, or any thing that we need to consider an allergy safe option for, I guess, earlier on in the term, if you're, trying to plan ahead. That's great. So what might be some common mistakes or oversights that you have seen when a child with allergies starts school or moves school, and how can parents avoid them?
So I think it's generally boils down to that breakdown in communication and assumptions. Don't assume, ask the question in a nice, friendly way. Offer to support and help, and build a relationship. We don't want anything to go wrong, but there will be times where not necessarily anything allergy-wise happens, but having the way that we speak to people often determines the response. So I know when I'm anxious, I come across as a bit too forthright and a bit too pushy. So actually I have to rein that in and really think about what it is that I'm going to be saying in order to get my message across and be listened to and heard without coming across as a bit bolshy and aggressive, because I know that puts people's backs up. And I don't get what I need and want for my child when that happens. Yeah. So I think it's, get to know the teacher.
Yeah.
Have a laugh and a joke with the teacher when you can, building that relationship. And really importantly, ask the teacher that if should they ever need to phone home, can the first words out of their mouth be, there isn't a problem? Because you see the school telephone number on your phone and your heart sinks and you immediately go into a panic. And the teacher starts talking and all you want to do is know whether or not there's been a problem, an incident. So that, is is something that you can say, please help me, not fear you phoning by, letting me know that there isn't a problem and that you're phoning for some help, and or whatever it is that you're talking about.
Sure. So you've talked about how important good communication is, but of course mistakes can still happen, unfortunately. So it's really important that staff are prepared to respond in an emergency. So that brings me to the AllergyWise training. Could you just talk a bit about how that training helps prepare school staff if something does go wrong, and how can it help give parents the confidence that staff will know what to do in the event of an allergic reaction?
So our AllergyWise training, first of all, is written by educational staff and reviewed by clinicians. So first of all, everybody that takes the course can be assured that they've got the correct clinical up-to-date information that is written by educators who know what schools need. So first of all, we've got our quality authors to the course. The course goes through those signs and symptoms and how to treat and how to use the adrenaline auto-injectors. So it goes through the emergency preparedness. So that equips staff with those skills that they need in order to manage a reaction. But crucially, we don't ever want a reaction to happen. So the good allergy management is essential, because that enables staff to think about how their policy and practice is preventing reactions happening in the first place, which is essential. And that is what sets our course apart from paediatric first aid training, from first aid at work training. It is the how do we prevent the reactions part of this being really important, as well as the fact that it is covering off that emergency preparedness. So in the event of a reaction happening, staff have got those knowledge and skills in order to be able to respond in a timely, appropriate way.
So if the school have advised the parents that they do have allergy training and that they have gone through a allergy course, what specifically should parents be checking for when they might have that meeting in terms of the emergency preparedness? If they have had a training that wasn't AllergyWise, what are the key kind of things you want to ask about that training?
Yeah, we want to know whether the staff have practiced with adrenaline auto-injectors, whether they know what the signs and symptoms are of allergy and anaphylaxis, if they know what the procedure is when a child is having anaphylaxis, where the emergency medication is kept, whether the schools have any spare adrenaline auto-injectors. If it was just allergy training from a first aid company, then we need to know what detail it went into and whether it does cover that allergy management prevention side of things. And making sure that the training covered the fact that the adrenaline is administered before the paramedics are called is also really important.
Okay. So if parents feel that the school their child is at is not taking their child's allergies seriously enough, how should they go about trying to talk to them about that?
Okay, so first of all, we go back to that communication. We go back to a meeting and we set out those reasons why we feel that the allergy is not being taken seriously enough. I have always followed up, both as a head teacher but also as a parent, those meetings with an email to the person that I met to summarise that conversation, because it's actually really important that you start to create your paper trail. If any agreed actions are then not put into place, what we next need to do is to have a look at the school's complaint procedure. And that has to be published on their website. And I would recommend following that complaints procedure step by step by step and making sure that every conversation that has been had is followed up in writing. Hopefully it won't get to that point. I'm available for parents and carers. I'm available for schools to help them with queries through our helpline and through both on the telephone and by email. And so we welcome schools, we welcome parents and carers getting in touch with us about issues that they have, because we can support them with the factual clinical information rather than an opinion that has come from somewhere that might not have such a reliable source.
Thanks, Tracey. So we know through the helpline and through our AllergyWise training that parents often have feelings of anxiety and fear when sending their little ones to school, or not so little ones, obviously, because you're not protecting them anymore and you're not going to be with them all day. So I'm just wondering what advice you have for those parents navigating those feelings of anxiety when their child might be starting school, or even just going into secondary school or a new school or a new year group.
I think it's really important to remember that anxiety is quite normal, and we all live with a certain amount of anxiety, and I do completely understand the position that parents are in when their child first goes into a new class or a new school. And I've obviously been there myself with my own children. The communication with school is really important, and building that relationship, because in doing those things you're building that trust. And I think it's important as well to communicate your anxiety to the school, to that person that you're building that relationship with, because if they understand that you're feeling anxious about it, they will understand that you will need to ask more questions, and the response that you get from them again will be different. And I think it's important that we are open with the school. I think if we're finding our anxiety really difficult to manage, we've got some great information on our website, again, about managing anxiety with allergies. And I would recommend having a look at that. But it might be, if our anxiety is stopping us from doing things, that we do actually need to go and talk to somebody about it and seek out the support of GP services, because it does feel huge, and it is huge. We just have to find those ways of managing it. And I have always found that by that open communication with school, by building those relationships, I end up with that trust, and therefore confident that they are going to respond well should anything ever happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously it's important for them to remember they're not alone, and how many people that we've spoken to and you've spoken with, Tracey, when you've done your training, or spoken to so many parents about their worries, that it is completely normal to feel that way. And as you said, we do have an anxiety and allergies webpage on our website with some useful resources that parents might find helpful. So just to round up, Tracey, on that really informative episode, I thought I would just ask you if you had any final thoughts on the matter, or any further advice to provide parents in this position.
Build those relationships. They're crucial. Don't expect things to go wrong. Think positively, but be prepared. And most of all, enjoy your summer and this very magical few weeks, even if you are balancing work and having the children at home. It's a lovely time to spend together informally, preparing your child for September and their next steps.
Great. Thank you so much, Tracey. It's great having you on again.
Thanks, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here.
We hope you enjoyed tuning in to today's podcast on this very important topic. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, you can subscribe to our podcast on your favourite podcast app, including Spotify and Apple Music. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media at Anaphylaxis UK to join in the conversation, and let us know if there are any questions you would like us to answer next time.